Okay, so what is happening, you have, it's an abstraction or radical reaction. Abstraction is caused by the molecular oxygen, which is represented by, or it is represented as a diradical. Diradical, okay, diradical. This is the diradical or O2. And if it is a diradical, two things would happen. What are these two things? You see this? There is a bond formation between these and this, and at the same time, the second, what is happening, there is a cleavage. So you have this carbon, okay, there is a cleavage as well as bond formation. This radical can abstract hydrogen from the carbon. So therefore, there is a bond formation, bond cleavage, and this process is leading to formation of, what is this? A carbon radical. Okay, this is a carbon. See, don't forget, again, this is forming a carbon radical. Okay, a radical. Plus, what is this? Hydroperoxy radical. Again, another very reactive, species are formed. Reactive guys are formed, and this has a radical again. These two, and can react again with what? A plenty of molecular oxygen already. This is an initiation reaction. So once these two guys are formed, again this radical, carbon radical, what will it do? It will again react with molecular oxygen, that is plenty. Again, what is happening? Again, there is a reaction. They form a bond here. Okay. See, this reaction is like, you cannot say it is very similar to propagation, but what they are doing, again, it is forming a bond. And so basically here there is no breakage, like here there is a cleavage. But once your carbon radical is formed, like this, that react with a molecular oxygen, and that is forming another, it's a making, okay, they are making another, results into the formation of another radical, okay. And this guy, another radical is formed. So here carbon, okay, this is formed from this, okay. And then another carbon atom can be formed. This once again, this is again radical that can react and form a hydroperoxide. How this hydroperoxide can be formed? Another carbon atom to continue to form a chain, or it can find another hydrogen from some other compound, some other source. But here it is very easy for it to find out, a nearby hydrogen in the fatty acid. This R that I showed it in the PPT. So you have a plenty of long fatty acid chain, so it can easily find a hydrogen from that source and oftenly pick up that hydrogen quickly and form hydroperoxide. And the moment these hydroperoxide guys are formed, these are the baddest guys. These are the very bad compound. Let me draw. Okay, so you have this carbon radical, and then it reacts with another molecule, and what it is forming? Simply it is forming a hydroperoxide. This gives rise to, okay, so hydrogen peroxide. Once this hydrogen peroxide formed, it is a degradation product. It leads to a bad compounds. Yesterday we saw they can be converted into aldehyde, or they can be converted into ketone, polymeric compound, or they themselves react with each other. And so generally, that these compounds are highly, bad smelling, and that is why in the food industry, it's not recommended that this oxidation is prevented. Auto oxidation is always not recommended, or one has to prevent. But since it is an auto oxidation process, yesterday we just quickly revised that this could be prevented by use of antioxidants, and we have many example in the nature also. So the carbon atoms that have oxygen attached are particularly more susceptible to radical formation. This is a well-known fact. In the chemistry lab also, you must have seen those items or those chemicals that have the carbon atoms that have oxygen attached are particularly highly susceptible to radical formation, and by this process of auto-oxidation, and that results into formation of hydroperoxide. A very well-known example, you must be, when I was a PhD student that time, whenever we used to work with a diethyl ether. Have you heard about diethyl ether? So that diethyl ether, our seniors never allowed us to use diethyl ether inside the AC room, because then diethyl ether has a very low boiling point, and then the moment it comes into contact with the oxygen, what happens, the moment it comes into contact with C, like in the diethyl ether you have this, let me quickly draw this. You can see you have this diethyl, and here you have an ether. So when the moment it comes into contact with oxygen, what it forms, a diethyl ether it forms. It's highly flammable, so it is also very reactive. I'm just giving you it is a kind of highly inflammable or explosive compound, because it has O. So carbon atoms that have oxygen attached, they are highly susceptible. So this compound is also highly susceptible to auto-oxidation, and then it can cause, there are many times, there was a fire, or and that is why in the lab it is, like it is not allowed to use it in the AC room or a closed room. So the moment these flames are formed, it should go away. So it's highly flammable, and it has a tendency to react with the molecular oxygen, and then it causes this hydroperoxide, or this highly flammable compound. So diethyl ether is a hydroperoxide. So organic compound that has readily extracting hydrogen are susceptible to auto-oxidation. It is by nature. For example, hydrogen in this position also, like in fatty acid, as I mentioned, you have this position, suppose, okay, and here there is a double bond. So it's an allylic position. Okay, it's an allylic position. This is an allylic position. Okay, so suppose you have, I'm not very good at drawing, but suppose you have two allylic. So this is 1 and 2. If you have 2, it is going to be more susceptible. So it's a doubly susceptible if you have 2 double bonds. So allylic position undergo auto-oxidation more quickly, and that is why unsaturated fatty acids are more prone to auto-oxidation than their saturated form, because they don't have this allylic carbon. Okay. So let me delete this. So in our body also, friends, in our body also, these free radicals continuously form. So what we always in body also, there is a damage due to formation of this free radical. And then what damage this free radical can do? They can directly damage to our genetic material. And have you heard about when there is a lot of stress, when there is a lot of tension, because you take tension, you take stress, and then these free radicals are generated, and then there is you get more prone to stress related diseases like heart disease, your artery get damaged, that's not one cause, but the stress is a very important initiation reaction, that can damage. Then one can get cancer or all these diseases or diabetes. So these free radicals can damage to genetic material, and that is what is the reason anti auto-oxidation is one that people seek to always avoid or reduce by taking antioxidant as supplements, or by eating food that are high in antioxidants. And so what are those antioxidants? You must have heard about, and my research group is working on bioactive constituents, especially on these antioxidants from various sources such as fruits and vegetables. And why the scientists are always recommending you to go for fruits and vegetable, because fruits and vegetable have the compounds which has a very good antioxidant activity. You will be studying this more in nutrition, and I'm not the one person who is going to elaborate you on the role of the antioxidant in prevention of this damage. And I'm sure in nutrition you will study that in detail. But what I would like to say here, so antioxidant act by like they interfere this reaction, and they can either react with these free radical that are formed. See, what is this happening? This free radical, suppose you don't have these compound, this peroxy radical, these compound you don't have. What how you will not have this compound? You will have an antioxidant which will quench, or which will take these radicals by rapidly reacting with them and prevent the further propagation reaction, further continuation of the chain reaction, and at least the formation of these hydroperoxide is prevented. So that's just a quick revision of your auto oxidation. And then yeah, okay, I hope I was able to give you again same thing, this more example I have drawn by taking a linoleic. Like if you have two double bond, and you see this carbon will get participated. I will be sharing this maybe after this lecture today itself. I will share all these slides with these reactions to you, so that you get more practice, and I'm expecting you to write these in examination, and not very difficult. Okay, so we also yesterday started looking at how one can, as a scientist, see, we know that this is the chemical reaction, this is the auto oxidation reaction, and then how to stop this and how to measure this. How will you realize that using this chemical compound or which antioxidant is more effective? Suppose you want to prevent this reaction, and you want to use certain ingredient, or you want to use certain additives to prevent this reaction. So how will you measure? See, until and unless you want to know the efficacy, you want to measure whether the oxidation is prevented, auto oxidation is prevented. So there are various methods, like peroxide value. Yesterday we saw that how this has also certain disadvantages, and measuring the peroxide, because these are the main initial products of auto oxidation. And if you can measure that auto oxidation products, you will realize that suppose you use X antioxidant. For example, if you use vitamin C quenches these radical, and it prevents the formation of peroxy radical. So you will come to know that, oh, vitamin C at this much concentration can prevent the formation of peroxy radical. And when I have an oil, I can use a small quantity of this additive along with this fat, so that my fat is more stable. Or suppose you make one cookies, and that cookies has unsaturated fatty acid, and you want to say that these cookies are rich in omega-3 omega-6 fatty acid, but you know that these unsaturated fatty acids are highly reactive, and then your cookies will get rancid or auto-oxidized easily. But then along with this, when you make these cookies, if you put some antioxidant, what will happen? Your cookie will get more shelf life. They will not get auto-oxidized, your unsaturated fatty acid like omega-3, omega-6, omega-9 remain in a intact form for a longer time. So this peroxide value, what it does, it has an ability, it is measured by based on the ability to liberate iodine. So these peroxide that are formed that can liberate iodine from potassium iodide, that is Ki. Ki has that iodine, or to oxidize the ferrous into ferric ion, and their content is usually expressed in terms of net equivalence of oxygen per kg of fat, and it has some disadvantage. And then we also learned about this TBA, this TBA, that is thiobarbituric acid, is again a very widely used test to measure the lipid oxidation, and the basic principle involved is the reaction of one molecule of malonaldehyde. Again, these malonaldehyde are the byproduct that are formed during the auto-oxidation reaction. So in this reaction, these two molecules of TBA react with this malonaldehyde, and they form a complex, and that complex can be, this is a very accurate method, but one should be careful that at what stage you would like to measure, because then if you go on the later stage, then it is like you will not be very specific, and there are a lot of disadvantage that we saw yesterday. Then iodine value is a measure of the unsaturated linkages. So you know that in auto-oxidation, what is happening? Only these or unsaturated bonds are getting cleaved. Suppose you have freshly expressed oil, which will show more unsaturated linkages. But the moment you have a spoiled oil, what will happen? It will have less unsaturated linkages. So this iodine value measures the unsaturated linkages in fat and is expressed in terms of percentage of iodine absorbed. So if you have more unsaturated linkages, it will absorb iodine. And the decline in the iodine value is sometimes used to monitor the reduction of dianoic acids during the course of auto-oxidation. Very simple, you understand now? Unsaturated bonds like dianoic acid, reduction of dianoic acids, and I'm sure in food chemistry practical you will learn this all methodology by hand on hand once the situation gets normal. Okay. Then active oxygen method, there are highly sophisticated method also. So this method is also used to evaluate the capacity of antioxidant method, in which active oxygen is measured over time as oxygen is bubbled through an oil sample, and how much oxygen is reacting. And if you have already broken bonds, it won't react. It's a very simple method. So what are the different factors? I might have explained these factors when we started this auto-oxidation, but just to repeat, it is very important to know the conditions which affect the lipid auto-oxidation process. Knowing these conditions can help us to minimize these in order to lower. Yesterday we realized that if you have more unsaturated bonds, okay, so what you can do, you can reduce this bond. How you can reduce this bond? You can use a saturated fatty acid, a saturated fat instead of unsaturated. But then it won't be an unhealthy choice. But then your product will be more stable. Okay. So in order to lower the extent of auto-oxidation process, we can minimize if we know the conditions which accelerate the auto-oxidation. So it will help us in determining the storage condition. So temperature is very important, because the rate of auto-oxidation reaction increases significantly on increasing the temperature. Suppose you are carrying out a process, food process. Okay, I will be talking about exclusively about food process. Suppose you are carrying out cooking or any food processing or heating, and if the temperature is increased, the rate of reaction increases. Now you decide which process has high temperature. Okay, we will suppose you have a frying, if you have a just roasting, or if you have a baking, if you have just a cooking or pressure cooking, or if you have just a open pan cooking. See, you know there are different types of cooking methodologies that are being used in food. So which process would go for a high temperature? Is it frying that has a very high temperature? Is it a roasting? Is it a baking? Is it a cooking? Just find out which process has, high temperature. Just think about it, okay? Because I will get back to you on this very soon, okay? Okay, so hence food containing high level or then another lipids are usually stored in cool places. Always, unsaturated, especially light. This is the second point. Light is known to catalyze the auto-oxidation reaction. Suppose, and that is why, if you have a food or cookies that are packed in, or suppose you make or bake and put it outside, okay, in an open environment, the cookies that has, fat or any product, suppose chips, you make it and put it in the open environment, and one you pack it in the packet which is not exposed to the open environment. Obviously the one that is in the packet will not get oxidized. So these are the open, okay. Please pay an attention on these points, because in the next chapter, which is on frying, I'm going to ask you a lot of questions, and I'm expecting all of you to answer those questions, okay? So hence food is usually stored in dark places away from sunlight, especially for fatty acids. We should be careful about light and the exposure of the food towards the light, okay? Because light catalyzes the auto-oxidation reaction. Then third is presence of moisture. Presence of moisture accelerates rate of auto-oxidation reaction. Tell me the food product that do not have moisture and that we don't cook. Which are the product that we cook which doesn't have moisture? Mostly whichever food we cook has a moisture, okay, except there are few, but then mostly in our day-to-day life the food that we cook has a moisture, and the moisture accelerates rate of auto-oxidation reaction. So a bigger challenge for a food scientist to reduce this. So again, it's very challenging. That's why I'm insisting that it's a challenging job as a food technologist. You see, look at the problems, and when you are looking at the problem, you have to also simultaneously think about solution. When you complete your graduation and go to industry, the industry is going to ask you the solution. The industry is going to ask you, oh, we are going to make, the suppose, for example, if you have a company which makes cheese balls, okay, or your company that makes omega-3 rich cookies, or your company makes what do you, those are very famous um, potato fries. Who doesn't like French fries? Don't you like French fries or chips or nuggets or chicken nuggets or meat nuggets or meat products that are fried, deep fried? Those are so tasty, yummy products. Your mouth will water. But do you think any of these product has a moisture? Almost it has a moisture more than 40% or even more. Okay, more 80% or more. Some of these product has a very high moisture content. So it's a very big challenge in front of you. And I am going to ask you that question very soon. Okay, think about it. Okay. So hence for a long-term storage, the food product is usually dehydrated or water content is reduced. But the moment you reduce the water content, the taste, texture, smell, everything gets affected. Everything gets affected. Suppose you have a French fries. Okay, you have a French fries which are freshly prepared. From the fresh potato, okay, and I take the potato, make the sticks, dehydrate them, and then that dehydrated potato sticks are fried. There is a huge difference in the taste, and you will obviously like this and not this one, okay. So again a challenge. So the products are dehydrated, but then you cannot meet the sensory acceptability, the consumer acceptability when you know work on that kind of product. Catalyst, look at this point, a very important point. Catalyst, some chemical compounds present in the food product act as catalyst. Can you give some example? Catalyst, some chemical compound present in the food product acts as a catalyst and accelerate the autooxidation. We already, I think, yesterday discussed that somewhere. Can you give example? I discussed that. Copper. Okay, copper or some protein compounds, you know, protein compounds or some sugar moieties or some other compounds. Okay, so that accelerate the reaction. Okay, so this is all about autooxidation reaction, and now let us look as a. So do you have any queries about autooxidation?
No, ma'am.
Okay, so can we move ahead?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. So let's solve this problem. And just now when I was explaining autooxidation, I tried to explain how these antioxidants can function. So antioxidants function by interfering with the chain reaction. Please remember what was the chain reaction. Okay, the radical formation reaction. If the number of free radicals can be kept low enough in the first step itself, oxidation will not occur. You will not allow that to happen. Initiation itself. The following is, this is the reaction. So you have this free radical, and this is an antioxidant compound. So what is happening, once you have this free radical, and then it can then again enter into propagation or a reaction, or it can form hydroperoxide or reactive radicals further by abstracting the hydrogen from another compound. So instead, what is happening, the moment this free radical is formed, there is an antioxidant in the compound, and this is a very reactive antioxidant. And then what is happening, a compound called RH plus A dot is formed. Do you see any of this is reactive and will participate in the autooxidation reaction? None of these can participate in the propagation reaction or any of the autooxidation reaction. And these are, if you have, yes.
Can't the A dot react?
No, A dot is a stable compound. It is a stable. And you see in our autooxidation reaction, in the fat degradation reaction, only you need either these or hydroperoxide compound. Then only the stage reaction gets propagated. See, you see in this reaction. Yes. Yeah. Yes. You only, this is not a good, yeah. So if you have only ROO, it can react with this compound, and then it can further form this R dot. This is a stable compound. This will form. See, suppose you have a oil, okay, a bottle of or a glass full of oil, okay, and you have added suppose only 10 milligram of an antioxidant, okay, antioxidant. So what will happen, the prevention of oxidation will only until then when this compound is present. The moment this is entirely gets stabilized into all A dot, what will happen, the oxidation will start again. So as a scientist, when in the industry people study how much quantity of antioxidant to be added, they study that how much is needed for example in your bottle. Suppose you see those 1 liter ka oil bottle you see. So they measure that in 1 liter how much should be added these antioxidants, and there are FSSAI standards laid FSSI, that, and based on the studies that are being carried out already, that how much antioxidant, it depends, like there are many factors, how much antioxidant is reactive, what is its strength, what is its capacity. Like for example, there is a BHA or BHT, we will see that there are natural antioxidant, there are synthetic antioxidant, and their power is different. Like suppose you use BHT or BHA or TBHQ, we will study that in more detail. They are more powerful, so if you use more powerful antioxidant, they will give more stability to your oil, and these are the compound that are already forming, then you will have another question to you. You will ask that if they're in the oil, if there are more A dot are formed, will it affect on the color or will it affect on the taste? Obviously yes. See, this is basically a chemical. If you use a chemical antioxidant, it is going to affect on the color, it is going to affect on the viscosity of the oil. So you have to choose an antioxidant which will form the stable compound, but at the same time it is not affecting on the taste of the oil, or it is not affecting on the odor of the oil, or otherwise what will happen, the oil will not get oxidized, or oil will not get rancid, but then the antioxidant that is stabilized itself will give a bad odor or bad taste or bad color. So that is why in food industry nowadays there is a more scope for researching on a natural antioxidant. That is why I was mentioning my research group, we are working a lot on natural antioxidant, and that too very cheap, not expensive, which could be extracted from the waste. Like in our food industry we have a lot of waste, but that waste also has these natural antioxidants. Like if you take these antioxidants from the peel of banana, or if you take from peel of oranges or peel of pomegranate. One of my PhD student is exclusively working on extracting. But then when you extract, you don't want the solvents to come into the food antioxidants, then otherwise you will get the solvent taste, and solvent, that they are carcinogenic itself. So what are the green techniques of extraction which can give you a green label to the extractives, and many things like that. So here what I want to say that yes, antioxidant react with this free radical, and these compound will not or cannot participate in the auto-oxidation reaction. To take participation in the auto-oxidation reaction, you should either have R dot, ROO dot, or ROOH. Then only you can take a participation in the auto-oxidation reaction. So here you will get a auto-oxidation is stopped. Okay, auto-oxidation is stopped. Okay, so further, so antioxidant can react. You suppose you have
Ma'am,
suppose you have, yeah.
ma'am, that A dot, is it harmful to your body?
No, that is what is. It is not. Yeah, it depends. Like if you use synthetic, we will study that in very good question. It is, and it is a synthetic. If you people use synthetic, and that is why their levels have been decided by FSSI. And now today, I am just going to talk about that. There is one assignment that will be given to you for studying a lot of different oil that you are consuming at home, and you have to also carefully look at the bottle of the oil, and every oil bottle or oil pouch or oil packet, you will see that they list this compound. Okay, they list this synthetic compound, they call it as a antioxidant, and mostly BHA, BHT. Sorry, let me put my laptop on charge. So of course, anything that is an excess is going to be harmful. So when these industries are adding antioxidants, they have to look for the FSSAI's label, and if they do not meet, the company will ban their product. So when you are using any antioxidant in the oil, obviously whatever marketed product that you see today is added with the antioxidant, but then to avoid these FSSAI labeling thing, because in a small quantity this antioxidant won't work effectively. So and then you cannot add for more. So if you have a natural antioxidant, then there is no like a restricted limit, because then it's good if you eat more antioxidant. Okay. And these products are not harmful as such in the limited quantity. Okay, so there are a lot of research paper also available, and oil department is also working on single antioxidant or combination of antioxidant natural, and people are preferring natural antioxidants over synthetic one. Okay, so this is again repetition initiation. So you cannot take part. Antioxidant will not like antioxidant will form a stable compound which will not take part in the auto-oxidation reaction. It's a stable compound. Okay. So in order to function well as an antioxidant, a molecule must react with a free radical. Okay, if you don't have a compound or antioxidant that will not react with free radical, is of no use. Okay, so it must react with a free radical more rapidly. Okay, more rapidly is more important. Otherwise, the free radical that is formed will immediately react with the RH molecule, or it will abstract another hydrogen from the fatty acid chain. So before that, the antioxidant should be very fast, very rapidly. It should quench, or it should react with the free radical. Okay. The products of the reaction with the free radical must not. See, the question that you just now asked is relevant. The product of the reaction, that is that A dot, which is must not be pro-oxidant. The molecule must be lipid soluble, and it should be stable. These are the criteria laid by the FSSAI or laid by the system. Otherwise, anyone can use anything, and then it should not be harmful to our health. The free radicals that are formed by conjugated molecules can exist in many resonance structure as shown in below. This is an antioxidant. It reacts with the R radical, and it can form a stable compound. Plus, it can form an RH, and then further, it just form again react with free radical. So, how many cycle this can go ahead, or how many? Suppose one antioxidant molecule is there. So, does it only takes one free radical and gets becomes non-reactive, or it can abstract, or it can take more free radical? It all depends on type of antioxidant. So you can either use, see, there are a lot of antioxidants available, like you have BHA. It has this ring structure with the BHT, butyl hydroxyanisole, and butylated hydroxytoluene compound, or butylated hydroxyaniline anisole is a very commonly used. BHA and BHT are most commonly used antioxidants, but nowadays I have seen more research paper on propyl gallate because of its very cost effective. You can find out which brand have added which antioxidant, how you can they never mention the name, but some oil bottle I have seen the name also. But if they mention some number, you can crack that number by putting that number in the Google. Suppose they put 345 or some stabilizer type some number. You will find some number, and if you put that number in the Google, you can decode what kind of antioxidant is added. Okay. So BHA is butylated hydroxyanisole, is a mixture of two isomers referred to as a hindered phenol, because phenol, phenol, it's a phenol compound because of the proximity of the tertiary butyl group to the hydroxyl group, tertiary butyl group to the hydroxyl group. And this may hinder the effectiveness in vegetable oil, but increase the carry through potency, for which BHA is known. Carry through means like you can see it can get carried. The uses, you can use it in the lard, which is an animal fat, a shortening, that is synthetic fats. You can also use it in vegetable oils like sunflower, sesame, or any vegetable oil, mustard oil. You can even use the cereals. In cereals, if you prepare some product, you can use them. You can use even them in a package liner. Sometimes in the food it is not allowed, because you will think that the stable products are harmful. For example, if you make some products for kids or infants, then if you have a packaging material in the lining, if you can make so that the product is not into the so that the stabilized product is not into the final product. Okay, potato products like especially french fries or potato chips or dry soups, those dry soups you get in the market, whereas brands like Knorr soups and many other soups or creamy soups. Sometimes you must have seen vegetarian soups or non-vegetarian soups, and these soups are added with dried fats or dried lipids, or sometimes cheese flavor is also there in some of these things, so they get oxidized. So these BHA could be added chewing gum, usually in combination with other primary antioxidants. So nowadays, I have not seen like a single use of antioxidant. People use it in combination, because now there are a lot of research papers that shows that together they make a better effective antioxidation. Okay, they prevent the oxidation. Then propyl gallate, this guy is also like very reactive, and the low, they have a low solubility either. Like if you put them in the liquid oil, you can see them a powdered form, or it has a, because it has a lower solubility, tend to chelate the trace minerals such as iron, or they can form the colored complexes when you, for example, if you have a food product that has pigments. For example, you want to fry carrot chips, or you want to make a beetroot chips, or food. That there are many food products which has pigments, or we process a lot of food in which you might use, so they can form a colored complexes. Are They are highly heat labile, they are not very heat stable. For example, in India we don't consume the oil in the or we don't have a cold low temperature formulation. Mostly we use a lot of frying, and even in vegetable curry preparation we use tadka. So tadka ko to kitna high temperature, almost 180 or 200 degree Celsius, और frying को भी 180 to 170 degree Celsius oil को गर्म करना ही पड़ता है. So it is especially under alkaline conditions. Okay, तो हमारे पास तो पापड़ तलते हैं, पापड़ में तो कितना हमारे पास सोडियम बाइकार्बोनेट या भजिया पकोड़ा हम लोग यूज करते हैं, तो उसमें तो कितना सारा पापड़ खार डाला होता है, या सोडियम बाइकार्बोनेट कार्बोनेट भर भर के डाला होता है. सो यू हैव टू थिंक लाइक which one will work, okay, very effectively. So in Indian context, okay, in Indian context, like unlike in Western countries, you have different products. They bake a lot, or they eat products which are not highly cooked or at a high temperature processed. So this is not used alone, it is used in combination with BHA or citric acid. Okay, then the next one is BHT, butylated hydroxytoluene is also a sterically hindered phenol susceptible to loss through volatilization in a high temperature application. So you have to look for the antioxidant which is not susceptible to high temperature. It is used in lard, shortening, vegetable oil, cereals, animal feeds, usually used in combination with BHA, BST, and citric acid. Then TBHQ, tertiary butylated hydroquinone, is an extremely potent antioxidant, had been used extensively uh, in especially non-food application prior to gaining approval in food. Now it has approval in food and it is used in cottonseed oil. And if you are more interested, to know about these, you can go to the website of FSSI, and there is a section on fats, oils, and lipids, and they have the information more on these antioxidants. So when you are as a scientist, when you want to choose any antioxidant, you have to consider the properties of antioxidant: potency, ease of incorporation in the food. As I said, if you are adding it in the oil and uska pura powder दिखता है oil में, then or it is giving a black color to the oil, who will buy your oil? Okay, so it's ease of incorporation, how much soluble it is in the oil, or what is the application. For example, if you want to use these in a cookies, but cookies में उसके white flakes बन जाते हैं after baking, तो कौन use करेगा इसको? So carry through characteristics, it should be homogeneously, like it should carry through in any system that is being used. It should what sensitivity it has to pH, because then in Indian context your oil will go through various like it will be used in various formulations, various food products, like हमारे इंडिया में तो हम लोग ऑयल को गर्म करके पिकल्स में डाल देते हैं, तो हाईली एसिडिक, या हम लोग उसमें भजी पकोड़ा यूज फ्राई करते हैं, तो भजी पकोड़ा में तो कार्बोनेट डाला जाता है, सोडियम बाइकार्बोनेट, तो अल्कलाइन भी है, एक्सट्रीम एसिडिक भी है, तो मतलब you have to look for what kind of antioxidant will be sensitive to all kind of pH, whether it's acidic or alkaline, tendency to discolor or produce off flavor. If the antioxidant itself is causing discoloration, for example, if you use it in the bhajis, okay, in some part of country they use a lot of vegetable, like I've seen towards South Indian side, people don't like. In Maharashtra we use plain bhajis, just we add onion, but then in certain other parts of the country they use a lot of vegetables, like उसमें लौकी डाल देते हैं, या देन पालक डाल देते हैं, या carrots डाल देते हैं, तो then that they have a lot of pigments, and then it should not discolor when you fry, use that oil along with that antioxidant, or it should not produce a flavor. Availability and cost. If it is very expensive, nobody will use it. Okay, nobody. Oil itself is an expensive, and then if you put some antioxidant and if it increases its cost, then who will buy? How they will perform their function in presence of other compounds present. For example, in many food products like cookies, you use a lot of other additives, like you use potassium sorbate, or you use glyceryl monostearate as an emulsifier, or you use some other additives like sodium stearyl lactylate, or you use some datum, or you use lecithin, or you use some emulsifier. So how does this function in presence of other compounds? Okay, stability, like how long it is going to get stabilized, like as they should not form free radicals themselves, how much is the stability for these antioxidants. So generally in the food industry they are being used in the combinations, because for example BHA may be combined with the propyl gallate, or along with citric acid, or TBHQ can be combined with the propyl gallate, and so on and so forth. Okay, because each one of them have a different property. The citrate can chelate the metal, propyl gallate can provide a high level of initial protection, while BHA has a very good carry through. So you can use, you know, propyl gallate in a very less quantity, and BHA can in a large quantity, so that it has a very good carry through property. You cannot, you know, see it, so it can easily, you know, go with the oil. So reasons for combination, like it, you can take an advantage of different properties, like each one of them have different properties. So if you use only BHA, it has only one property. Propyl gallate singly, it has only one property, but then if you use in combination, you will see that, you know, different property. Allow for a better control and accuracy, may provide a synergistic, this is very very important, synergistic. Nowadays people are even trying, you know, natural antioxidants, natural phenolic compound, natural essential oil like clove oil or some other natural extracts from the fruits and vegetable, and then that is why it provide a synergistic effect. Combinations may provide more complete distribution in some food, and it is more convenient to handle, you know, this is from one paper in which, you know, bakery products were given treatment with different amount of these antioxidants in pastry and cracker, and this is the days of stability. So if you control, okay, without any antioxidants, so pastry within 2 days got spoiled, or crackers got oxidized within 3 days, but with the use, you know, you see this cracker got 22 days of stability, and so on and so forth. Okay, so when you use any antioxidants, you have to make sure that what type of oil you are going to use. Like suppose you have a flaxseed oil, which is a highly unsaturated, or which has more PUFA. Okay, so fats and oils like less effective in higher polyunsaturated. So you have to see if you are using it in a suppose palm oil, and you have a sesame oil. Sesame oil has a more unsaturated fatty acid than the palm oil. So its quantity, obviously antioxidant needed in the palm oil will be lesser than the sesame oil. Sesame oil has more unsaturated ones. Foods made with the fats like potato chips, nuts, candies, premixes, frozen fries, you can use them, you know, in different products. But then which form of the product is also important. Okay, which form. Food with the fatty constituent like other spices, cereals, dehydrated vegetables, citrus oil, chewing gum. You can have multiple applications. It's up to you. Natural antioxidant, like there are natural antioxidants available nowadays, and industries are asking for more natural than the more synthetic. It should be lipid soluble, it should be non-toxic, should not have carry through same properties like synthetic one. And most importantly, natural means more, you know, costly generally. So rosemary quinone is a natural antioxidant. It is a no rosemary quinone. Then you can also look for sesame. I will, when I cover the oil processing, I will tell you, you know, some of the, and one of my PhD students have also worked on, you know, oil and its stability from different sources. Like we have studied peanut oil, sesame oil. We have also published that in one of the very good journal. If you, I can share you that link, and you know the stability of the oil at a different temperature. We have exclusively studied and published it in a very high impact factor journal. Okay, and so sesame oil, whether it is stable, or palm oil, whether it is stable at frying of fat or frying of potato. Okay, French fries, we fried French fries, and then we also tried in some other products like frying products, and we checked whether it is, you know, stable. So generally, you know, some of the oil has a natural, nature has given, you know, the ability, like the sesame मालूम है ना, तिल खाते हैं हम लोग, तिल की पट्टी खाते हैं ना हम लोग, तिलगुल खाते हैं. So that till sesame seeds contain sesame oil. But then when you process this oil, we get all today nowadays whatever oil you get is a processed oil. Okay, processed oil. So these, during processing, these natural compounds are lost. Okay, removed. Basically they are removed, and that is why हम लोग, आई थिंक फूड टेक्नोलॉजिस्ट, हम लोग ही पहले निकाल देते हैं और बाद में फिर से सोचते हैं अरे इसको कैसे ऐड किया जाए. तो बट बेसिकली व्हेन यू चेक द नेचुरल एक्सप्रेस्ड विदाउट प्रोसेसिंग processed oil, you will find that it is more stable than during frying. It is more stable. Of course, we have studied and we have published, and that is why with that confidence I am saying that the natural oil is like stable. But then of course there are certain difficulties like foaming occurs because there is more lecithin, more phospholipid. But the naturally expressed oil has these natural antioxidants. Like in sesame, there is a sesamol. It is more effective than BH and BST. See, these synthetic, what they are doing, synthetic antioxidants से भी ज़्यादा effective ये natural है. There was a study performed in lard. Okay, so this is the structure of sesamol, a phenolic compound. Oats have been recognized to have an antioxidant property, or 25 phenolic compounds have been identified in oats, like hexacosane 126 diol diferulate, ferulic acid. You have heard about this ferulic acid compound, or gallic acid, or caffeic acid, and tannic acid, phenolic compounds. So, and you know that phenolic compounds are also present in pomegranate or vegetable, or some of the fruits. Banana also contains a lot of phenolic compounds, tannin. Okay,